So we're here in Glasgow at the amazing Gorbals Sound, and this is Paul and Kevin who's going to walk us around and tell us all about it. Exciting.
Go
After you.
I'll lead the way.
Thanks very much.
This
It's
is
very
nice and
moody,
dark.
isn't it? So this is studio, the live room for, what do you call it?
Studio 2.
Studio 2.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. And what kind of stuff do you tend to do in here? Feels like a good room for drums and stuff.
It's a great room for drums.
A lot of people are picking this for drums.
Yeah. Yep.
The good thing about this is in that corner and in that corner and that corner sounds exactly the same.
Right.
So what we've found is even if I have a kit here, which I usually put a snare, you know, top point,
Yeah.
build a kit here. Even if I put a mic up there, when you usually see we'll put an odd facing away mic.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same. It's just a delay.
Wow.
So there's nothing. The colour of this room is the colour of this room.
Yeah.
You know. The other thing I really like in here is a quartet. Beautiful for a quartet.
It's got a lovely reflection, isn't it? I can hear that.
Yeah. It's like it's tight and there's no colour. So when you just pop an XY up here, or that's it. You can spot them, but generally you're just using that. And I have done it just a stereo.
And with this kind of reflection, they can balance themselves really effectively because they can hear themselves.
I mean, obviously the best case is no cans.
Yeah.
And if they're just sitting playing, you've got that quartet here, and they feel it's really warm. They're not getting any reflection. There's no kind of bass end where the cello's booming, so they really respond well.
Excellent.
And again, there's no added colour, which in Studio 1 there's a more live room, so it's good to have a flat space.
Brilliant.
That we can record in.
That's
and
right.
we have done in the round with 8 traditional musicians, so fiddle players, whistles, which usually scream through everything.
Absolutely.
And we can just balance it and record it live. So that's we kind of. I mean, there's a lot of design went into it, but we did luck out because it works.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I've built a couple of studios back in London, and whilst there is a lot of science there is at the end a roll of the dice.
Yeah.
We've got a terrible flutter that we can't get rid of in our studio. Sounds nice, but it is roll of the dice. You know.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And constrained by the building as well. I mean, everybody wants to make the perfect, but when you give it to an architect, it's like, well, that's the structure of the building. So fitting a building within a building.
And just the vibe of a place. You know?
Yeah.
So something I've noticed here, and which is a feature of your studio, is the floor up glass. Which the first time I saw that is at British Grove, and I saw also that at Napier University, and I think there's a connection, isn't there?
I think the connection would be Callum Malcolm,
Callum Malcolm, yeah.
who was in the design of the studio.
Right.
And he was a fan. I know he's a fan of British Grove,
Right.
and he's also a fan of Blackbird.
Yeah.
So his idea being that we would, like this room, like Blackbird, their idea is it's flat. They don't want any colour from your room.
Yeah.
So your reflections work on that. And that and British Grove, he took the idea, which we have, most studios have this.
Yes. Yeah. So
Which
you feel like you're in a fish tank.
It's a frame.
Yeah.
So you're framed and you're always in shot, and you're disconnect.
Yeah.
So if you take that, it's amazing the difference.
I completely agree.
And a lot of people comment when they come in here that, like, because even the wood, which much to the annoyance of the builders, if you keep the same, your eye forgets that there's a bit of glass there instead of 3 bits of glass, and it keeps that connection when we're chatting to somebody. In Studio 1 and in the booth, it's the same thing. So if a person's singing, they're actually just standing next to you, and it's just a booth between you.
Yeah, I completely
So,
agree.
I mean, whoever came up with that.
Well, the first time I saw it in
And I
British
think
Grove,
it was British Grove because Jim Simony and Callum Malcolm, when they were doing the build, they went to British Grove.
Yeah.
Because, as Kevin says, Callum's a big fan, and I think had worked with Martin Offler in the past, so there was a connection there. But and again, the great thing that I think, you know, coming from a less technical side is the fact
Well, from
that,
sitting on this side of the glass, you know.
yeah, really, yeah, I suppose, yeah. Is the fact that Jim, who was the actual builder, had never built a studio before.
Right.
So it was a completely new adventure to him. He's just a builder, you know. But a tiler, which is really odd because when you look at the lines, which have been pointed out to us quite a lot, the lines are all in perfect symmetry each other.
Yeah.
You know, so all the lines and the walls, you know, just the sort of small detail and you know, as Kevin says, what's went into the actual build. You know, there's a lot that you don't pay particular attention to, but it's those details that make the rooms what they are, you know, without a doubt, you know.
Now, I was just saying, there's a point of latitude. I haven't worked out where it is, whether it's below Birmingham or above, where every studio has a harmonium in it. But there's a special story behind this one, isn't there?
This is it was called a field organ.
Yeah.
Right.
Which basically was carried about the field in the First World War. So the chaplain, whatever, could play.
Yeah.
And they could, I don't know, sing their songs. This was Ivor Cutler's.
Yeah.
And there's an amazing coincidence there, because Ivor Cutler taught me nonsense lessons at school for about 10 years.
That's so good.
And I can still recite his rhymes.
Yeah.
And he'd scream at you and send you to stand in the corner if you came up with mundane ideas. So if he asked you what you wanted for Christmas and you said, I want a computer, he'd send you to stand in the corner. And the next guy would come along and they'd go, apple-flavoured wings. And he'd go, right, next, you know, absolutely.
Nonsense talk.
And I have basically...
And look what you've become.
But it's nuts when you meet up with people who went to my school. There is this kind of really bizarre sense of humour.
Those nonsense lessons really paid off.
Yeah, I think they did. But that's amazing. I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
get
and it
a
now
photo of
belongs to Donald Shaw.
those. Wow,
Yeah.
incredible.
So there's a great...
That was just back, actually. Donald was doing a session at Grove a couple of weeks ago, and
That's
and
right.
that travels with him.
That's right.
And not in any flight case, which
No.
will always...
Exactly.
It
as
comes
is.
in and out of a car.
Yeah. It's as is.
An estate, and gets dropped in the rain, and people come and pick it up and use it for gigs, and then drop it back off. It's never had a...
Yeah. But probably its whole life it's been...
It's battered
It's been-
and dropped,
Yeah.
and it won't change
All
Yeah.
it.
those chaotic characteristics.
Yeah.
It's funny, the further north you go, it gets crazy. I mean, we were up in Iceland in Soundlauken. Close enough. And they've got like about 30 harmonium. You can't move for them.
Is that right?
Yeah, no, it's
They
great.
love them.
They love a bit of harmonium in Iceland. Should we have a look at the...
Yeah.
Look at that.
This is where it gets all techie.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, this, for me, you walk into a studio and you look at something like that and you go, well, there's going to be a story there. That's not, we just went down to the shop and bought it.
No. Again, this is another installation. That's a Callum Malcolm. He had there was two of these made.
Right.
Callum had one in his house, and he managed to pick up the other for here.
What is it?
It's a Neve, Deca. We call it the Deca Neve. So it was commissioned by Deca for in 1981. It's for an outside broadcast truck for their classical work. So this is it's the Pavarotti desk, we call it.
Yeah.
Because it basically travelled around Europe and recorded
That kind of stuff.
classical work. As much Providence as we know. So we've done a bit of research, and it's like a 54 series. There's some you see that are the same in a suitcase. You can get them in
okay, right, yeah.
beautiful, that's stunning. So you can get an 8-track in a suitcase. And like anything, I've had a channel out, and it's basically poured solder. You know, that way where it's just the solders. It's not a PCB.
Okay.
And every single thing is a resistor click.
Wow.
So if you take any of the pots out, the master pots, there's your pot and a resistor between each.
Oh, wow.
Hand wired. So it's that level. Also, the EQs are different for any of the 54s you see, because it's at that time Neve were making whatever you wanted. It was a bespoke desk.
Yeah.
So it's tuned, their EQs. And again, people come in set up a drum kit. We've got a 1963 super classic, you know, the Ringo kit.
Yeah.
Put a couple of mics on that, bring it up through this. That's it. That's nobody else is asking. I mean, you never get clinical and or
It's
an EQ.
It's
It's two notches. It's that way where it's bump and chink.
Yeah.
You know, there's that's it. And if you can't get it, go in and change your mic or your, you know.
It's how it should be.
And the thing I love is that's 12, goes to Pro Tools, comes back. You can come back in 16. So how you want to mix in this day and age is we've got a summon mixer.
Right. So you use this room for mixing as well as tracking?
Yeah. Use it for tracking. I like mixing in this room.
Yeah.
Clients like mixing.
Really nice.
It's a nice tight room.
Yeah. It's nice and intimate.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's a great sounding desk. And when we go in next door, I always say to people, we have the new portico, the new Neve.
Okay.
That's just extra pre's.
Sure.
So I tried, and then if we need to get a bit clinical, we can.
Yep.
There's other parts. We also get this Shelford in here, which is Rupert Neve Designs.
Okay.
So it's a portico, but he's voiced it and he redesigned the transformer and he called it the Shelford because that's where his hut was that he used to nip out and tweak. So it was in Shelford. So he released the Shelford series, and the desk now is I think it's gunmetal.
Right.
So they've taken, and it's just a different. It's a older voicing.
Right.
Which kind of meets in the middle for me because the 58, which we'll see, is so transient. I mean, it's like you hear it yesterday, you're standing next to the fiddle.
Okay. Yes.
And then you come in and the fiddle's playing.
Yeah.
I was just there. So, that's the other way.
Character.
It's a bit spongy.
Yeah.
You know, it's maybe a bit late. I don't know. It's how you describe it. It's just...
I think one of your assistants said it's like putting a mix through a ribbon, which I think is a lovely description.
Yeah. I mean, a bass DI is a good measure for me because you pop it in a channel and somebody plays and you go, oh, that'll be that.
Yeah.
There's no, can we get this compressor or that?
How amazing.
So they do have that. This has its own character,
Yeah.
and as we'll see in next door.
And this is something that I'm, experiencing about, seeing these, going and meeting great people, fantastic studios it's as much about the experience as it is the sound. The room, the surroundings can affect the performance, the way you place your mics, the way that you respond to the equipment around you provides an experience.
You change every time. I've worked in different studios, and then you come here. It takes you a while to settle on where the mics and this desk will be. So I'll know that the chain here is basically our 67, which is in one of the rooms. Yeah. So our 67 in that or that room through that desk, that's Absolutely. It. I can go flat.
I think it's a good way of describing, you described the EQ, the desk being tuned, the room is tuned, the instruments within them are tuned. And for me, I refer to myself as a recovering piano player. It's like you go, I went and played a piano in a studio that was really dark yesterday, and I played chords according to that. And then I went and played your Yamaha, which is very bright sounding piano, and played some different chords. And you just respond differently to the experience that you're having.
Yeah.
And I think that's a crucial
We have that
thing.
with the piano in next door. It's fast. Yeah. Some players don't like it. Some jazzers don't like it because it's too fast and it's kind of bright. Yeah. They can get away with an older Steinway. Steinway's a lovely piano. But for recording, I've found you try to meet. You can never please everyone.
No, absolutely. But I just think it's interesting with this kind of in-the-box thing. There's a kind of a uniformity of experience. And the minute you start working with rooms and extraordinary pieces of kit like this, you just respond differently to that. I think that's
it opens up.
Absolutely. So shall we have a look at the... Good stuff, Paul, thank you. So should we just walk round the horseshoe and then end up in the control room? Because this is... I don't think I've ever seen this before. Is this? Do you know of a precedent of studios that have this kind of setup in a horseshoe?
No, I've never been in a studio.
I suppose you would have to search the floor plans of
of many
of all the studios, but
yeah. But I mean, I've never been in a studio like this before, and I've worked in a lot of studios worldwide, and I've never seen this floor plan in a studio. You know, with sight lines like that as well.
Absolutely,
You know?
right through to the other.
Right through. Yeah, absolutely.
So we're in booth 1. So again, if that's our desk and our horseshoe, what's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on our booths. Just this last week, we had a client in looking at the studio, and I described this like I did next door about that view. If the producer's sitting here or engineer's sitting at the desk, you have this sight line.
Yeah.
And in this booth, which was a pleasant surprise, I can find that I can have a mic here, and I can even have that much distance, with somebody singing. You know, and it's great because they are in the moment, and you're not getting any room or reflection and they don't have to be stuck to that.
Yeah, and it's a big space, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very.
So they've got a headphone and a wee table, and they're just spending time singing, and then they're connected back to the person. Yeah. So we're really, really lucky, you know, and it's design.
Yeah, no, it just strikes me as such a collaborative space. I'd love to find an excuse to get a large band with all sorts of different backline and stuff. I guess that's the versatility must be incredible.
You'll hear it's instantly, this room's different.
Yeah.
And it's bigger than its size. Yeah. And you only find that out by doing certain string sections or drums don't really give you, because you can make a kind of, for me, drums can be, you can fool people with drums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you have string sessions and things, that tells you that, like, we had at one point just a spot up here and used it for a TV programme, and it was a 4-hour session, 11 players, they came in, sat around, done some string work. And we tended to just use the overheads. Yeah. And it was like when we added it in, it was a lot bigger. And that was early in the studio. And I learned for that this is a lot bigger than its space.
It's got quite a warm sound to it compared to the other room.
And again, well, for people saying there's maybe a G in there somewhere that's kind of woolly. There's something about, 280 that I'm not too, and they'll zoom in. And it'd be hard to get this as flat, and you need some character in a room.
Absolutely.
So as much as we have the flat rooms, we have flat booths. At least give us one room that's got a bit of colour. Yeah.
There's a very low node in the hall at Air Studios, and we were recording a tuba, which was right at the back, right hand, just him on his own, and the left tree mic started peaking, and he just hit that room node, the standing wave, and it was the whole room.
It's not the worst thing in the world.
No,
people go, like engineers are like, don't mention the note, but that's what rooms have it, voices have it, instruments have it. So you won't know until you get that instrument that just takes it over.
Yeah.
And again, the piano, which was a drum booth.
Yeah. Do you move that in or out, or does it just live there?
We move it in and out.
Yeah.
People can come in. One of our projects was fun. It was piano, an album with 2 amazing players, and they done just 4-hand piano piece, and they were in here. So we've had a few pianos in and out, which isn't, as you know, the easiest thing.
Yeah.
And when I came here, the piano I don't think had ever been in here. And strangely enough for me, this is the piano booth.
Yeah.
It's shaped like a piano. The piano player can play, and the strings can still be on.
I think this was designed predominantly for drums.
Yeah.
You've seen it as a drum room, that you could open the doors and you'd
or you could at least get separation. Yeah. But we popped the piano in, and it just works.
Yeah.
It just, for me, that's something about the Yamaha sitting here. We've done lots of TV stuff, where it's just piano soundtrack work, and it's warm and And the great thing is we can have bands in and you can shut the door and they're connected.
Amazing. What a space. Awesome.
We've used this room. We've used this room for, even like sort of
For storage at the moment.
for storage at the moment. Production rehearsals and
Right. I bet.
Yeah.
You can see the.
yeah,
Yeah, that's handy because your monitor guy can go in there.
yeah,
The band's in here rehearsing.
Yeah.
Front of house sitting here.
yeah.
So they can just sit so they're comfortable.
Yeah.
It's in
And
there.
they've
It's a
got
rehearsal
plenty,
space.
they've got plenty of space to
Yeah.
work. The space for what you're getting is amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And in this day and age,
Small
when a lot
house
of bigger
in here.
studios are closing down,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's versatility, isn't it? I mean, it's absolutely crucial. This is really dead, isn't it?
Yeah, well, this is where we'll normally put. I'll put a kit in there. The two side rooms are usually guitar amps.
Yeah.
The singer's in here.
Yeah.
He's playing, putting down some guide vocals or the vocal. And we can have our two guitarists, bass amp in that booth. So the band are together, and it gets back to that way where they're tracking. There can be somebody.
Yeah.
There can be somebody in the room, conducting the band, whatever it is. We had a really good jazz session, and that worked a treat.
Yeah. And they can throw pints at each other without actually hitting it.
There
Just
you
hits
go.
the glass.
yeah, absolutely.
They can be in their glass case of emotion. They can have their own wee tantrums.
Yeah, they can.
That's great.
Again, the mirror of this, which is the same size technically, but has a slightly different. I use this for guitar amps, and it might be down to that the access to the green room.
Right.
That adds something.
Okay.
But again, it was just an access door, but it's the same design as this, but it sounds slightly different.
So there's a bit of reflection off that door.
Yeah, so I'd like guitar amps in here, 2-3 guitar amps, then we can just feed stuff in, and then that.
And there's a bit of
That's
something.
world.
It is a little bit more than there is in the other one. There's a bit of something, isn't there?
So you just take your time and find your rooms.
Extraordinary. Brilliant. So coming to rest in a desk that I've never seen before. Is this a new?
This is a new. Well, the story of it. I think the story as it goes with Rupert is.
So it's a Rupert Neve.
It's a Rupert Neve design. It's an R&D.
Okay.
And when he brought his portico the portico systems out, he just decided to frame it and put it on a desk. So they call it a penthouse system.
Okay.
Where you can fill that with whatever you want. So whatever has modular, you can.
Is that?
It's a way ahead of the game.
Fill that with divorceware.
Aye, and it has been done. So we picked just the pre's with the added secret silk button.
Okay.
Some people love it. Some people say why.
Okay.
But it's the smiley face of EQ.
Oh,
so
I see.
the added silk, which there's no reference to if you either like it or don't. It's
Yeah.
a button that goes in.
Okay.
So even in the manual, like who reads a manual? But so there's 32 mic pre's. That's 2 tape.
Right.
Yes, I did say tape.
Yeah.
But that's to record, and then that's back. It's not in line.
Okay.
That's your returns, and your auxes for headphone sends or outboard. So it's really much it's a modern, moving forward desk because they're using it exactly. You can change. You can have what you want with the colours.
How interesting. And I imagine this kind of hybrid way of working that we're now working, where it's in and out of the box. That signal path makes a lot more sense to me than.
Yeah, and also this room, I think, was predominantly. I think Callum had the foresight to know with studios that it's for tracking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is predominantly a tracking room.
Okay.
People come here and will book this for. And if you take the perfect scenario is, you would come to Gorbals Sound, you would come in here, you would set the band up, you would have different booths, and you would record through this.
Yeah.
So you maybe take that for your 2-3 weeks, your tracking. Then why not take the 67 and the ribbon mic, and then go into 2, and just do the smaller bit and then people can disappear. And then even 3, you can go into that room with the same module, the same mic, the same room.
Of course.
It's just a different
And I've
booth.
noticed the same near fields, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's that idea where you're not locked into one studio.
No.
So whatever the rate is for Studio A, you can then budget for Studio B, and then even if it's just a single, you can take it into Studio C, or 1, 2, 3. You know, that I think that was his idea and design, which works. But I think his idea was predominantly making this a tracking room, and going back to that, picking this is very much one of its concerns, or its was in tracking, just make it flat. Just make something, and these are again so clean and transient. I don't think they're voiced.
Yeah.
I can't hear. I just hear every mic we put up has its character.
It was quite extraordinary yesterday recording Chris, because it really was that I came out of that room and I came in, it was like I was in the room.
Yeah. And we get it. I mean, especially with kits, so, then it's every single, because you're standing next to a snare drum and you're putting mics up next to that cymbal, and that's the ones that'll tell your desk with the transients.
Yeah.
So you just come back in and you go, that's it. That's the space is picked up, the transient is picked up, and that's the headroom on these are exceptional.
Right.
And they're so quiet. So for a tracking space, I think he's made a great decision. Yeah, and then we can have that. Compressors, again, they remind me, the Neve compressors, the new compressors just remind me of Massenburg compressors, where there's tons and you can't heat. It doesn't add, they're not colouring. Some people love them, some people hate them.
It's control.
It's just control.
Yeah.
So you can go back to your Uris and, you know, if you want something, your DBXs and Manleys, you can have that for colour and mixing. But he knew that everything was going in the box, but we can still have an analogue chain getting there.
Getting there, absolutely.
Which is super clean.
It's fantastic.
And then it comes
system.
back and it mixes.
Yeah. And is this, no, it's fantastic.
And there's no automation, it's just mixing.
Yeah.
It's that idea, if somebody wants to bring it out too, they can, you know?
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to bring it out
So you
16,
can
they
jump
can.
on it, yeah.
And then they want to bring their effects back here. So it's that way some people still remember that can make a difference on a desk.
Well, it's all those little
Yeah.
things. Well, the thing I've always said is we have opposable thumbs. And the problem with in the box is this. Can't do that in the box. Extraordinary.
Yeah, yeah. And that difference, I mean, that desk thing where it's less than a millimetre, and suddenly the mix is ruined because the hi-hat's just the loudest thing in the mix.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes, I'm a bit huge fan. But going back to that, if you can...
But I think the problem I have within the box is it tells you what you're doing, and then you tell yourself you shouldn't do. Oh, I've boosted that by 12 dB. That's too much, as opposed to going. Sounds good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Or
Yeah.
it takes you 2 minutes to start again.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Yeah, exactly.
instead of going, oh, mouse, then undo. You can just bring that back up and get back.
So
Yeah, so this is our...
It's absolutely fantastic. And so you've got these kind of mid-range ATCs, which again, British Grove is ATCs, I believe, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep, I think so. I've been a fan a long time. I had SCM 20s and different studios. And
yeah, they're beautiful.
And I'm a fan. We had 300s in another studio I was at, so I was quite happy when I came here, and there was the 150s, the Ronnie Biggs. Put them on the Ronnies. And again, with the 300s, I'd mixed a record on the 300s just on because the client just wasn't interested in 10s or, you know. So if you're sitting at the kind of prime position where that design is, why wouldn't you? Your majority of your mix is done on these.
Sure.
You know, and then you can check your other stuff in near fields. But I've never been this. It has to be done. You know, on your near fields. Well, why spend? You know.
Well, with ones as good as these, I mean that's the key. Often,
in a room where it's you know your head's here and this is where the music is. So what is the history of Gorbals Sound and your involvement, Paul? Your involvement, Kevin?
judging by the age of the desk, are we talking 5, 6 years old?
6 years old.
Okay.
6 years. Well, I've been here for just under 6 years.
Okay.
And I just come in initially just as when it was first, I come in just after the build.
Okay.
So I wasn't involved in anything to do with the build and stuff like that. I come in, it was different people that were in the management and stuff like that. And I think I was here about a year or so when the sort of management structure changed, and I sort of took over the management. And just from my experiences sort of playing in bands and
you're a drummer, Richard.
And I'm a drummer,
some
yeah.
amazing bands you've worked with.
My sort of idea was, well, let's just try and cherry pick all the best, all the good things about all the good studios that I've been to, Ayr, the Manor, Leaders Farm, Ridge Farm, and sort of try and put them here. Larrabee North in Hollywood, which it really reminds me of, which it really reminded me of as soon as I walked through the doors.
Yeah.
So just sort of putting all that in place, because I think, just from my perspective, a studio is really about, obviously it's about the equipment and stuff, but people's important.
Yeah.
Sort of finding the right people to add to the vibe of the place. And then that's when we sort of brought Kevin in, so the sort of engineering structure changed as well.
Okay.
I used to have curly hair.
So the people used to call him Curly.
Say, yeah, Curly Kev.
So I'd heard this name and heard this name and heard this name. Need to check Curly Kev. Has Curly Kev been down? And I was like, I have no idea who you're talking about, And then it was Kevin. He actually that exactly as Kevin says. He just come down, checked the place out, and it was a kind of really bizarre turn of events, wasn't it?
I just said,
because Kevin says, well, I'll just stay along the road, blah 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 blah. So that was really cool, and. I was like, it was really odd, because I was like, he is exactly the type of guy that's great, and he's great. So it just so happened that we had a session a couple of weeks later, wasn't it? And the engineer was like, oh, I'm ill. So the band that was coming in they were coming in then and going tour. So I was like, just knowing from my experience again, I was like, we can't, that can't happen. So I was like, you need to go home. You can't even be in the same room as these guys, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, dear, we're really stuck in it, because they were arriving in like an hour's time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to phone this guy. So I phoned Kev and I says, Kev, this is the deal. I need you to do a session for me. He's like, when? I was like, the now. And he was like, cool, I'll see you in 20 minutes.
Fantastic.
And that was it. And I was just like, right, okay, that's...
Serendipity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the first time I came and we worked on a film called Tommy's Honour together, I've obviously been to loads of studios.
Which was a huge hit.
Which just won the Scottish BAFTA for Best Film, which we're delighted about. Hurrah for Jason. But there's three reactions I have with studios. One is coming and going, looking forward to working here. The other is, I can't wait to get this done so I can get out as quickly as possible. Yeah. And the third is, and I had that kind of quite profoundly coming here, is I need to find a way of coming into this studio and doing something here, which is, and I think it's about the space, and it's clear, when and there's a load of studios in London, you walk in, you just go, well, half of this is going to work. So this is going to be a real trial. So you walk in, immediately know there's a respect for the client, for the studio, for the space. But also, it is, I prefer, there's two very big studios in London, and I prefer one over the other because of the atmosphere and the people that are there. And it's so important because it's an emotional, expressive, but also very challenging environment. And you spend long hours here. You're in the trenches. You want them to.
Yeah, I mean, there's a balance between making something sterile and
yes,
cold.
Absolutely, I completely
then
agree.
everything works and it's shiny.
Yeah.
But there's also it's that balance that you're trying to get. Yeah. But from both sides, there's a lot of places you go have that. The person doesn't really want you there, and it's quite common.
It's some very successful studios.
This is
like
how
they're in the trenches.
Yeah, this is how this is how they do it. You walk in and you get that. This is how we do it here, and we record like this.
That doesn't work.
So I mean, if somebody wants to do like the oddest mic setup, it's like I'm like, let's go, let's
dance experiments.
Yeah, it's a creative space,
absolutely.
and it's in a.
So I just got a couple more questions. It's interesting because, as you say, it's been really difficult times for studios. And I don't know if this is a correct summation, but I think everyone went into their bedrooms and into the box for 10, 15 years and are now coming out of their bedrooms and out of the box. And I think are finding a middle ground, a hybrid way of working. And I think there are, whilst it's been very difficult for a lot of studios, I am seeing a whole raft of studios really starting to thrive, really starting to become quite busy. And you guys are busy. And what's your opinion on what's changing in the industry? I think there's an interest with the next generation of putting mics in front of cabinets again and that kind of stuff.
Again, when the rock and roll end of things, which a lot of people just see as the music industry. There's loads of genres of music, and the one thing that I looked at was, again 6 years ago, was who is still recording in the same way as we think, our generations, who is still recording that way? We're in the heart of, tradland, traditional Celtic music, Those players, those musicians like to still go in the room. Jazz still likes to go in, orchestral likes to go in rooms, and that's where we sort of targeted, and that's where we got a lot of our clients from, So that, the sort of bands and they still. They're because the labels aren't, the big advances aren't there anymore. They're just not there anymore.
But there's also the thing where if a band can make X amount of money or get by without working in a coffee shop, whatever. So if you can get by making records in your room, smashing. But what will happen is in 10 years' time, you'll have 3 records. If one of those records was made in a studio, you'll remember it. And that's the thing about the memory. If you come into a studio, it's collaborating.
Absolutely.
And it's always been that way. That's an experience thing that people get when wisdom. You learn that. Remember that record we made? Yeah, it sounds great because it was done in a studio. The record we made that sounds good, but that was done in the bedroom. It's twice as much work. As you know. It takes. If you think it's expensive working in a studio. If you think it's expensive working and with professionals, try working with amateurs. It's set up for that. So if it's, we're getting a studio.
I'm going to use that phrase. It's very good. No, I've just built a studio in Edinburgh, and I've, been looking at. Am I going to save space there and put a booth there? And I've just gone, no, I'm just going to go to studios that have a booth. I'll go and record. If I need to record Chris, I'll come here and record it. I don't need to do that. I'm just setting up a writing room at home. And to use the expertise. Because also, the one thing I think that people don't realise, if you've not had much experience of working in studios, is that letting someone get on with making sure that the level's right and it's going to tape, whilst you concentrate on working with the musician, is so refreshing. And you going like that and them going, I can't hear the click. It becomes very stressful. So I've abandoned that, fully out of the box for all of that stuff. Paul, the final thing I'd like to talk about, and you touched on it, is I've been living in Scotland now for a year. And I think, the land mass, you look at Scotland, you think, well, it's quite a big country, but actually the population is really, really small. And the music that comes out of this country is phenomenal. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, we punch above our weight, man.
What's going on?
I don't know. It's just always been that way. I think Glasgow, it's like any big city, I'll always attract people from all over the country. That's the attraction. It's like the bright lights will go there because that's where the work is. I think it's all it's that Celtic thing.
Flows through it. So you're getting that storytelling. So you have a Scots and a Celt meeting.
And I think it's the sort of there's
nothing else to do.
There's nothing else to do. No, I think it's because it sort of dates back. I think it goes sort of back to obviously, you know, the naval bases and stuff like that, you know, and the sailors coming in
Sure.
from the States and stuff like that, and bringing that. It's very much like Liverpool, and
Yeah.
you know, where it's been introduced
Yeah.
to that, you know. A lot of people say that the Scots
Tons,
are
there's
very
tons and tons
melancholic, you know.
Yeah, there's the Orkney Islands.
Yeah, yeah.
I was recording a girl once at Sisters, and one of them was playing like a Cuban piano line,
Wow.
right? But it was an Arcadian song, Arcadian album.
Yeah.
And I said, how did that come in? And she said that there was like a Spanish, the North Sea,
Yeah.
a boat.
Yeah.
I know the scores landed in Ireland.
Wow.
So locals were just going, okay, well, what's that? And then it made its way into. So the cross-pollination of music, because we've always are emigrants and immigrants in Scotland,
Yeah.
is always, and even more now, we have amazing things locally, just,
Yeah.
you know, with refugees and Syrian campaigns
Yeah.
and different things. So I think we've always been really open towards what's that. I mean, Celtic Connections alone is, I mean, that's, what's its 30th anniversary or something?
30th, yeah, 25th.
Massive.
Yeah.
I mean, globally,
Yeah.
massive.
So January, February, you know, mid-January, early February.
There's a million people in
huge
Glasgow
influx
who come
of
and see.
musicians from every
Yeah.
corner of the globe, you know.
And don't be fooled by the Celtic. It's
no.
a
I
traditional
think it's.
festival.
I think.
There's everything.
I think it's very much like just kind of targeted.
Well,
kind of grassroots
it's not
music, you know.
It's not WOMAD as such.
No,
but
no,
it's
no.
more. It's of storytelling tradition.
Yes.
Which is Celtic.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
it means.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's keepers of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that tradition is all comes through Basque. You know.
Yeah.
French. I mean, it's all.
Right through the
So
South
there's a lot
African,
of
you know.
the African, with a lot of African acts, Indian acts.
Yeah.
A lot of them come over. So it really is a global thing that happens.
Yeah.
And we get we've had
Yeah.
amazing, like Senegalese kora players in here, and
Yeah.
just through.
Really just quite amazing musicians, you know.
Wow. Incredible. Well, listen, thanks so much for your time. It's always a pleasure to come
Pleasure.
and
You're
see you
welcome.
guys.
Absolutely.
Brilliant stuff, Paul.
Thanks
Thank you
very
so
much,
much.
Christian.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks,
Thanks, Christian.
Awesome.
Thanks very much.